Veronika, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Vida, for welcoming me, and hi to everyone. I've never used Teams before, so I have no idea how anything works. At our university, we use other tools, so I don't even see how many of you are here, but hi. Thank you for having me. You should already be able to see my presentation that I put together. I will probably be sending this to Vida and to disseminate it to you, although I have to say it's not like a very detailed presentation, but more like the flagstones, so that you can, so that your eyes have something to listen to while I'm talking as well. So yeah. How to successfully communicate for young scientists is the title of this input I'm doing now. The young is in brackets because maybe you're young, maybe you're not, maybe you're an older person, but also starting out to communicate your science to other or different areas of a life. That's why young is not a number, but a feeling. So just a quick thing about myself. My name is Veronika Rogenhofer, excellent pronunciation wieder. And I work at the Wegener Center for Climate and Global Change. We are an institute at the University of Graz, that's in Austria, in the southeastern part of Austria in Styria. The picture is from last summer and it looks really Mediterranean. That's because Graz is already kind of south of the Alps, so it feels very Mediterranean for an Austrian city. And I'm the coordinator for public relations. This means I'm the one person for my institute where we have like 50 or 60 researchers in different areas. And I try to coordinate our dissemination efforts. Where do we put our things like in public relations, not like the journals, but magazines or other channels, social media, etc. And on the other hand, it's often the case that someone calls me and say, I'm from newspaper so-and-so, and I'm writing an article on XYZ, and do you have an expert for that? That we can interview, and then I go from office to office in our building and try to get people to answer the questions that the public or the media or whoever has. Yeah. And maybe just a little bit what we do as a research, because like we are Wegener Center for Climate and Global Change, so our research is very relevant. I'm not saying that other research areas are not relevant, but I feel that we feel that very acutely the interest in our science, and so that it's also a question for us to what do we want to tell the public, and how do we do that? So that's something that we are always in an ongoing discussion at in our house and with other institutes at the university and stakeholders, etc., etc., etc. So what are we going to do now in the next 15-20 minutes? I want to give you a short intro, and then I have tried to post some questions or introduce statements and questions for you that you, when you have something to communicate, should or I encourage you to consider, like what this is like. Know your message, know what you're talking about. Yes, you are the expert in the field, but also consider what is the message in that moment, but more on that later. The format around where you're communicating, this is knowing your audience and knowing the format. And one big part is also, I think, know yourself. This is something to do with the role of us as scientists, or knowing which role we are posing in, or considering how we might be perceived by the audience. And then for the last part, questions and discussion, of course. So let's stay with the intro, because apparently I haven't prepared a slide for that. So the intro, I think, is to open, for me, is to open the space about the science communication. Apparently, Holger, he's from our institute as well, did a talk or an input for you too. And what Vida said before is the rethinking transfer. And I think that's a very good way to think about science communication, because it's something that a need for that, I think, has grown in the last years as the public has become, just to say, bigger because of social media and different venues in our life where we can communicate. And that is something also that we at Wegener Center are feeling, but also at the university itself, like I guess Holger talked about that as well, like the third or fourth pillar of universities, the communication of our results. Like, we are not just sitting in a tiny office in the basement and doing research. We are also trying to communicate what we have found. And that might be the first thing that I feel that is important when you are communicating your science, either the data or the findings of a study, but also like your viewpoint as a scientist on something that might be something that's relevant. And the thing is, I think knowing your message is really important. And I found this a lovely thing. This is from a text from the quotation or the citation is on the slide, which you will get. And I call that backwards thinking. And yes, I know backwards thinking might also be like a regressive thinking, but what I mean by backwards thinking is not that, but thinking the other way around. This is also something you might not just use while communicating to a bigger audience or whatever, but also something, this is what the article is actually about. You could also use it for your own research writing or scientific writing. Like, the basic thing that you learn at university is you write an introduction, you write down what are your methods, you write down what are results, and you write down you discuss what you have found. And you could flip that around. You could think, and that's the know your message part for me, is what would be the take-it-home messages. Like, we have done a study on, that is something that we have done, for example, on public and industrial transports, and we have looked at that's the traditional approach, and we have looked at business as usual scenario with e-motors, and then we have compared these two. And that's the traditional way. But you could also flip it around and say, what do we have actually found? Like, for example, in your final paper for your project, you will write zack, 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 and this and this and this in the linear structure. But when you're communicating to a broader audience, I would encourage you to first think, what are the three biggest messages, or the one, even better, the one message you want your audience to take with them. For example, the study with the transport is, we have found out that switching to E is actually better in several areas of life. That's not just, it's cheaper actually, it's better for health, and it's better for the environment. So, like, this is the most important thing to get over. And yeah, the second part is that I would bring into your minds is like that we are telling stories. You cannot not communicate. So everything you are trying to bring to your audience, it's easier to do that with a narrative or considering the framing you're doing. Like you're not just telling facts, but it's ideal if you can link it with a story, maybe something that might be something like a personal thing, like, and I'm doing this and that, or it might be posing a scenario that a lot of people can relate to, and yeah, in general, like emotions are much more easier for people to remember. Like I remember when XY told me this and that, and I might remember it better when I felt something at the time. So that's the telling stories part for me. All right. All of the big text I have on the yellow slides, they all kind of link together, of course, because it's not just knowing your message, but it also knowing your audience. So when you write a proposal, you know you have to do this and that, and you have to embed it into the literature, and you have to say this is relevant because, etc., etc. But in different areas, you might need to think that you might need to consider that your audience needs other input. That means maybe a different kind of language. In general, it is best to think that people in general audiences don't know all your vocabulary. Like that is something that we at Wegener Center struggle with a lot, because like we keep talking about net zero, and we talk about cutting emissions, and we talk about tipping points. So as well as social, as well as physical or natural tipping points, and generally people don't know that. So I would try to find ways to communicate your content, the topics that I know that you're the expert of, in different words. Try to break it down. Don't be afraid to ask people whether they have understood something. Like, do you know what it means? Okay, no, it means this and that, etc., etc. And like, you would tell stories differently when you tell them your grandmother or your best friend in the pub. Like there's different settings and different framings where you communicate. All right, that goes pretty much together with the format. Like the format and the audience might be linked a lot or not, but they can be linked. For example, on social media, on Twitter, you have short stuff. On Instagram, it's probably best to use a video, etc., etc. But also, like, what newspaper are you talking to? Is that newspaper? Like in Austria, we have like the tabloids. It's different what you're telling them than to something like, I don't know, The Guardian or whatever. Like, know who you're talking to and in what framing is your content probably gonna be appearing. And I think one of the important things is also to know yourself. Like, you are the expert in your field, yes, but you might also be a person that loves to talk in interviews and is good at bringing something across face to face. Or you might be good with kids, and then you might go to schools and do talks there or do workshops there and something. And I think the important thing with that is also, don't be afraid to try something. because you're not gonna find out whether you actually like talking to a reporter or not if you just say, "Ooh, whoa, not me, not enough. So it's not enough in my field, and I can't do that." That is something that is probably also a little bit gendered with people, because like in general, women tend to say, "No, whoa, that is not exactly my field of research, so I can't say anything." And men are, statistically speaking, easier to just go somewhere and say something, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna wing it. So really do try, because also, as on the one hand for yourself, but also on the other hand for your poor public relations officers at your institutes as well. They are always happy to find people who are willing to take over public outreach. And it is such a broad field, I think. You can do talks, do discussions, do interviews. Maybe you have someone at your university who's doing videos, like we have, for example, someone, it's let's talk about science, let dog with dog, the animal, not a talk. And he does, he goes to our researchers at the university and does short videos. And these videos reach a completely different audience than a classic newspaper or an article on your university's website. And don't be afraid to try, and don't be afraid to fail as well. Or fail is such a harsh word, maybe, but maybe something doesn't work out perfectly the first time, but perfect is the enemy of good, because if you're afraid to not be perfect and you're not doing it at all, then you're not gonna find out whether you might be actually good at something. Yeah. And that is basically already my last technical slide, and that's a quote from The Flight of the Conchords. Maybe some of you know them. That's a New Zealand comedy duo, music comedy duo, and they have a song "Issues." Think about it. And what they do in that song is they are talking about the issues, but they're keeping it funky. And this has stuck with me for a very long time, this quote. So I'm trying to pass it on to you, because I think that's exactly the thing. We at our universities or at our institutes, we do a lot of work with our research in all the different fields. And if we're just doing that in our office in the basement, it's just gonna stay there. But we want to make it relevant, not only in our scientific community, but also in the wider society in general. Different universities might have a different emphasis on how much they want you to go out with stuff, but in general, I think that's not just a nice thing to do, but also an important thing to do for universities, because we in Austria, at least, we are publicly funded, and what we research kind of belongs to the society as well. Yeah, and that's maybe harking back to knowing yourself and know the role that you have. Keep in mind what you're comfortable with and how you might be perceived. But I suppose you all burn in some kind or in some way for the stuff you're doing, because I don't think you would write, for example, a dissertation if you just don't like your subject. So in general, in different phases, it might be different, of course. But keep in mind that you like your stuff and other people are usually interested. Go out with an open mind and assume that other people have an open mind to what you are trying to communicate, and also keeping it funky. Yeah, I think that's it for my part. I have questions and time for questions and discussions. I think I have time. We have time until 35 or something. Vida knows that better. And in general, thank you. And when you get the slides, you will also have my contact info in that. Now I'll close it because then I can see you.
Yeah, thank you, Veronika. So use the opportunity to ask, maybe to comment, because I'm sure that every one from you have tried, as Veronika told, one form or another. And the main thing is that, yes, think about the whom, about what, for what purpose you are communicated, and then choose the format. So any questions? Just, we're not very big group, so hop on.
You could also tell about the situation that you had and
maybe some suggestions. Yeah. Maybe, yes, if there was some problem in communication. So take the opportunity to receive advice from science communication specialists. Well, it seems silence. So we will have also time for questions at the end of the meeting. So maybe Veronika, thank you at the moment, and maybe we'll back with the questions after the second one. Oh, we have already a question. So,
oh, it's in the chat.
Yeah, in the chat. How to handle language barriers? Yes.
Yeah, that's a big question, because one of the, for me as well, because one of the most asked after or sought after topics is something that, as we have 4 research groups, and one of them does social complexities and transformation science. And we have a lot of requests from the media to that, and almost everyone in the research group only speaks English. So that is a big thing. Depending, as I was talking about earlier, it depends on the format, because sometimes, like when it's a request from a newspaper, they might be able to do the interview in English, if that's something the researcher feels comfortable with, which I'm guessing they do. And then the newspaper has it translated. But what we are also doing is that we try to encourage our people who speak German as a second language, because a lot of the requests for us are in German, of course, and for Austrian media in German, is that the people either do it anyways, so you're not gonna make it if you don't try it in German as well. I know that's very difficult, and there might be a lot of an emotional hurdle to get over that, but I would encourage you to do that. But also, as I said, ask for the request to accommodate your language needs. Like, for example, do the interview in English, or what we are doing as well is doing the interviews in written form, like they send us an email, and the researcher either does it in English and I do translate something for them, or they try it in German and then it goes to me and I go over the text and say, try this and that, and does this, did you really mean XYZ? And so that we can produce something that is understood. There's a helicopter flying around. I hope you didn't hear that. It was very loud. So again, try stuff. Don't be afraid to ask. And yeah.
Yeah, and from my experience, if you are talking with non-professional audience, especially with citizens, so actually don't be afraid to talk in any language because they are listening to your topic, not checking your grammar mistakes or anyone else.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I was looking at the paper you suggested, finding your scientific story, the one you show the picture, figure one.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting because it is something that, as a research group, we sometimes say, what is the story, what we want to tell people, no? And that can work for some of the papers we do. But then I was wondering, what about registered reports? So when you have to send the introduction, the method, without knowing the results, how can we write very well and tell a story if you still don't know the
If you
story,
still don't know, you don't know that, but on the other hand, you mean for like the reports?
Yeah, the one before you have, yeah.
Before, like for example, in the proposal. I think for me, when I'm not from social sciences or natural sciences. I'm a German language bachelor, and I'm in gender studies in a master program. So that's my background. The thing is, you probably, like, a story does not have to be Frodo going to Mordor destroying the ring. It can be something small. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a 3,000 pages thing. But when you start a research project, you probably have a question, and you probably have something that is interesting to you, not just of course there's stuff you do because that's like in the research policy or whatever, or like in and what the university wants you to do, but find the stuff where you are interested. Why are you interested in this exact question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Veronica is still here. If some, so write in the chat. Oh, Paolo. So a question, already a presentation.
No, it was hello everybody. So I'm Paolo. I will be the next speaker, but I would like to take the opportunity to highlight something about the issue of communication, because it's part of my my experience also in the last project that we just concluded, and I will say something later. The issue of what to communicate, how to. Well, I would like to put my 2 cents on this regarding the fact that it's not only a matter of presenting your results, but it might be also the opportunity to present what are you doing and why you are doing if you are dealing with general public. So rather than focusing or being trapped, feel trapped to have not the data of your research ready to be disseminated, you might also consider to inform your audience about what are you doing and for which needs, to tackle which challenges that are relevant, and that they might produce the funding for your research activity. So it's a matter of think a bit differently communication.
Yes, just communicate not final result, but also the process, the topic, or the issue actually, why, with the importance of certain research. So,
and I would also say it's okay to not know everything, either before or during or even after, because often you do a study and at the end you're like, yeah, but that brings me to my next question. So like, it's a process, and you're never gonna be finished with anything, so you might just as well communicate where you are at the moment.
And if a new question arose, so leave it for the next article or next communication. So also will be another chance to present another issue. So thank you, everyone. So Paul already introduced himself and stepped in, and he will present his practical experience with communicating with the public, with wider audiences, and results from a project, as far as I can see. Paolo, the floor is yours. Veronika, please stop sharing the screen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you also, Veronika, for introducing the topic of science communication. I have to admit that I'm not very familiar with with Teams, so I hope to be able to share my presentation in a sec.
We use it as a training opportunity as well
Yeah,
to
for
work
me
with
as
another.
Well. Okay. So it's moving really, really slow.
Yeah, it's still black, but something is happening.
Something is happening, but don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
So I will try again. Okay. Should be this one. Okay.
Yeah, it seems that it's still thinking.
It's thinking.
Yeah, just in case you can send it to Virginia, who sent you a link. Oh, we can see it, just not presentation mode.
Can you see the presentation now?
The presentation, but not presentation mode. So we see your screen. So
I see. So let me change. Let's see if it works this way.
you stop sharing. So
Yes, because I'm trying a different way.
so you can share PowerPoint and then do slideshow.
I think now you can see.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, I made it. So thank you for supporting me, for being patient with me. Okay, I might close my webcam in case the connection is not good, but I guess that you can hear me at least well. Can you confirm it?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's nice for me to see so many people connected to this event. I would like to, with my lecture or intervention, as you prefer, I would like to shift a bit the attention from the practical side of how you to communicate your research experience, your data, or even, as we just said before, the rationale behind your research. I would like to move from this to a very important topic that is related to communication in general, science communication, that is the public engagement. More specifically, I will deal with the issues connected to how to perform public engagement concretely in practice. And I will give you some examples from this project that is called NewsEra. As an H2020 project we just concluded 2 months ago, actually. Yeah, less, because it was almost the end of March 2023. And as you may have read in the short abstract, my contribution wants to explore the area of public engagement as part of research agenda at EU level, and I will exploit the experience of New Zero project, even though it was not a project devoted entirely to public engagement, but it mobilized some concepts from public engagement that I will recall shortly. I also mobilized the literature and tackled in practice some of the issues, some of the limits of public engagement, because public engagement means, as you will see in a minute, means to overcome the limits of a straightforward, top-down, sometimes even blamed to be paternalistic way of communicating science. That means to assume that your audience is totally unaware of what science and scientific research is. Public engagement is something that tries to overcome this perspective. And co-design might be a specific outlook, specific perspective to create a proper public engagement in order to engage not only citizens in general, but also specific stakeholders into science and technology, decision-making informed by science and scientific research, and more in general, scientific knowledge. Let's see if I can. Okay, so this is a short table of contents. So we'll define public engagement more into detail. I will give you some hints about the current context about public engagement, the main approaches, and then I will deal directly with the New Zero experience, giving two examples coming from that. And then we will go to the take-home messages, well, actually is one. And then we can leave the floor for the Q&A. So public engagement, I already say something about that, but it's important to understand why is important public engagement and what is for public engagement. So we can define, according to another European project from the past, Engage project, we can define public engagement as a way of involving citizens, and emphasis added by me, stakeholders, in the decision-making process or even in the research process itself. What does it mean? It means that normally the general public is not involved, is not part of decision-making processes regarding science, technology, science, research, innovation, research and development agenda. And sometimes citizens or stakeholders that might be in some way affected by those decisions or affected by the research itself are not able to express their point of view or even to express their voice. I think that most of these issues are already there for you. It's something that you should be quite familiar, since I assume that most of you are applying for European funds. But let me go more into detail about two issues related to decision-making and research process more in general. Indeed, public engagement, that means involving people into these processes, is supposed to bring significant benefits to the research institution, policymakers, and as a kind of reflection also on the public. Why? Because policy, if they are informed by public views, point of view, value, are more likely to be trusted and accepted, since they might be perceived as more legitimate compared to something that comes out apparently out of the blue. You can see, you can imagine the point of view of someone who was not being involved in any part of a scientific research project aimed at providing evidence for a specific policy program. Then you can see easily how they might consider something that is totally unrelated to their own life, or totally invented by someone else. Of course, I'm making something extreme in this case, but this is one of the issues that public engagement wants to deal with and tackle more directly. Indeed, it's also important to reassure the general public, as well as other stakeholders, that research and innovation activities are relevant for the challenges that we might face in the coming years. For sure, as Veronika said, one of the main topics in the research agenda is climate change and how to deal with that. Moreover, or rather, finally, it's important to integrate the skills, the knowledge that are already there out in the society, that have been for a long time excluded or not considered, that might be integrated into research and development and also innovation process. These ideas about public engagement are built upon the myth about science, research, and innovation, that are basically the idea that science and technology can rule legitimately the political agenda, and that if we have enough knowledge, then we can also forecast social change in general, and also orient the course of life of states, economies, and citizens. Well, these two perspectives, they are called the myth about science, research, and innovation, as outlined by Sheila Jasanoff, well, are of course connected to the issues of legitimacy and representativity, because technoscientific issues and experts are not directly elected, so it's a matter of representativity and might be felt as not legitimate to produce knowledge without consulting other stakeholders. In this sense, public engagement wants to solve these issues, bring in something that is more legitimate to into the processes of decision making, as well as research and development. So, what is the current context we are living in, both as citizens and as researchers? Well, public engagement is considered a key asset to scientific research. Is something that researchers themselves can have. First, it to a mutual responsibility between societal actors and the so-called innovators. And here we can have another important label that you might be familiar with. There is research, responsible research, and innovation, who is informing the full framework program from the European Union, as well as the 9th for funding. So we all have, in applying for fundings at European level, we all have to refer to responsible research and innovation pillars, including gender balance, and so on. And also because it's part of the attempt to make not only researchers accountable, but also responsible for the choices they made in terms of societal impact. Indeed, as already mentioned, European programs explicitly call for projects that need to guarantee engagement activities and is strategic in order to be funded. If you have a good public engagement part of your research project that is sometimes falls under the label of impact, then you might have better chances to be funded. And also at policy level, both in the EU and in the US, there is plenty of policy documents that in some way support and require to integrate public engagement within scientific research activities. Being this said, I will briefly recall the main approaches into public engagement. According to the typology proposed by Bucchi and Resini some years ago, we can distinguish between sponsored and spontaneous approaches. On one side, we have the sponsored, that are the initiative provided directly from scientific institutions, research groups, universities, or researcher in general. While on the other side, we have the spontaneous attempts from groups of citizens that self-organize in order to create their own scientific knowledge, creating sometimes also in collaboration with other researchers, some scientific protocols to collect data and to enter the public debate using precisely data in order to proficiently discuss with decision makers that are already informed by data. It's not only a matter of contestation. I would like to stress this point. Sometimes it's also a matter of how to support this decision making, providing data that are not already there, and especially in the life sciences and health, about health issues. Patient association in the past have been extremely impactful in providing data about their self that were not directly accessible to researcher, informing trial protocols as well as research and health care protocols. Sorry. In general, the approaches can be defined as you can see here from these quotations. Here I reported 3 that I found particularly relevant. The first one referred to the idea that to bring in people that normally are marginalized, sometimes patients or sometimes people that cannot access cures. Another, the second quotation, sorry, is about to concretely provide innovation, also take into consideration inputs from someone who is outside of the loop and might open new perspectives that are not already present within research groups. And finally, as Hans Brünig, former director of European Environmental Agency, is a matter not only of bringing people in, but to define methods to directly engage those actors as soon as possible. That means to not only give a good exercise, a goodwill exercise, sorry, about involving people that is not used to be involved in the past, but also to directly create a program of engagement through methods that need to be further assessed in their efficacy, so to be concretely impactful. And this, I believe, is very important, not only from the point of view of someone like me that has public engagement as a research object, but I think this is also useful to be considered for people who want to perform public engagement within their activities. Of course, I'm not saying that this is simple, but I will get back on this later on. Let me just point out that European Parliament, when defined the features of Horizon 2020 program, clearly recall what is important for public engagement, and specifically the co-creation and co-design approaches in order to provide the opportunity to have effective public engagement. And these are part of the European Parliament resolution about the Horizon 2020. They really tackle the issues of related to public engagement, fostering the citizen civil society participation in co-creation exercises. So, in all of this, the New Zero project work directly in the attempt to support this, to answer to this call coming from the EU. The project, as I already mentioned, was not about public engagement in itself. It was about citizen science. If you want to learn something more, please visit the website. Oops, I forgot to put the link, but anyway, I can put it in the chat later on. There are some videos that explains that help to explain better what the project was about. Here, I just would like to recall briefly that the project was oriented to demonstrate the potential of citizen science. I will not go into the details of what citizen science is. I would just like to recall that citizen science is one of the way in which citizens or non-experts contribute in some way to scientific research, collecting data, analyzing data, categorizing data or images, directly taking part into scientific research process, working on data. So they are not necessarily expressing their own opinion, but rather they are doing research, a specific part, or taking even part to the full process. It depends, of course, from the experience. There is a lot of heterogeneity, of course, and I will be back on this in a second. Just to conclude this, the comments about this slide. Well, this this was the full path of the Newsera project that lasted 3 years. Most of them were periods of lockdown, and this affected very deeply the full project, because most of the activities, like this one, were thought to be co-creation activities in person, with meetings all around the countries involved in the consortium, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. But because of the pandemics, we shifted to a series of online workshop. Each of these lab that are in the blue rectangle were subdivided in different meetings that we carry out online, involving 38 citizen science initiatives or projects with practitioners. Most of them were researchers working in research institutions and in or even at the university, in some universities. I will deal here with two main tasks that we had in the project. One was to co-design project communication strategies oriented to the so-called 4-helix model. That means not only to communicate science to other colleagues, that is one of the is part of this 4-helix model. So other scientists are researchers, not only to the general public, that is a second area of this quadruple helix model, but also to the policymakers and to firms and industry and small medium enterprises. So this is the 4-helix quadruple helix model that inform the full path of Newsera project. The idea is to co-design the a communication strategy per each of these 38 citizen science initiative oriented to some to these targets. We divided the project in four groups per each country, and we decided to assign each group to a specific stakeholder. So one of the stakeholders that are part of the quadruple helix model. So this was the main task. I will talk about in a minute. While beside this, we also had the opportunity to co-design the impact. So to co-design indicators to assess the how the communication strategies impacted directly on their stakeholders. Why is it important to have these tasks performed through co-creation activities? One of the reasons why is because of the heterogeneity I was referring before, heterogeneities of the citizen science projects. Indeed, we made a screening and a survey to select pilots to be invited, and we immediately to be invited into Newsera to take part to the co-creation labs. And we immediately realized that there is a lot of heterogeneity in terms of resources, not only financial ones or funding resources in general, but also in terms of time. Sometimes citizen science initiatives are side projects or even pet projects of researchers. Sometimes are a project driven by NGOs that that might have limited, especially local level, have limited human resources. So there are very few working on the different tasks related to citizen science, and communication is sometimes something that stays at the margins. At the margins, what does it mean? It means that most of these projects have a social media account that sometimes posts pictures or announcement, but is not a proper strategy, not even oriented to a specific communication target. So when we selected the project, one of the first attempts that we made, it was to bring those stakeholders the project wanted to. Oh, sorry, there's an ambulance. Hope you're, because I'm in front of a street close to the hospital here in Padova. Sorry. Okay, now it's over. Okay, back to this, to what I was saying. Yeah, what we did was to act as bridges between the projects, the citizen science project, our pilots, with those stakeholders they wanted to communicate with. And we invited representatives of those stakeholders, for instance, in the lab dedicated to the firms. We invited some people working as communication office in some firms or industry. It was the case of a project dedicated to marine litter. We invited someone from the plastic industry in order to see how they could relate to each other, what a citizen science project related to marine litter can offer to one of the villains we could call about marine litter, that is plastic industry. And moreover, we put them together to talk in a dedicated activity about which are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats about a specific project and related communication initiatives. And also we had another very interesting approach to co-creation to make people pretend to be having another role into their relationship. So using these 6 thinking hats, according to the hat the participant they were wearing, of course, between commas, they acted differently in order to keep the participation, the discussion active. Each of these workshops lasted at least 3 hours, sometimes even in 2 days. So that means one afternoon and one morning, in order to make people able to reflect on the first what happened on day 1, and then further develop their feelings and opinions in day 2. And this was a co-creation experiment related to how to design a communication strategy, because also stakeholders provided their opportunity. They provided their ideas about what they need in order to be reached as communication target. The second example is about co-creating assessment tools. In this case, we already accomplished the definition of communication strategy. So most of the pilots, this was almost the second year of Newsera. Most of the pilots implemented their communication strategies as they have been co-designed previously, and we tried together with each project to define the proper assessment tool. In the code that citizen science initiatives are extremely heterogeneous all around the 3 countries, and of course they are working in different local contexts. The idea that we developed as Newsera consortium was to be fair in providing assessment tools for the project. Indeed, building upon the experience of other assessment tools, both related to responsible research innovation, both specifically related to citizen science, like the Action Project, we realized that it's not fair, not even useful to set up golden standards for everybody for any kind of citizen science project, and that's why we defined the opportunity to co-create their own assessment tools. Also because most of the projects were very diverse in their communication strategies oriented to their specific communication target. Again, here we had several meetings, both in group and individually, to work together on areas that we defined as Newsera. Of course, we defined key areas related to impact assessment for science communication, but the specific indicators referring to those areas were defined together with our pilots. So, and I'm about to conclude. Take-home messages. In general, co-design public engagement, according to our experience as a Newsera project, meant to set up something that was attainable in terms of aims and objective, and to define some shared standards shared between us, researchers of the Newsera project, and pilots, rather than imposing something external, a threshold or even or even objective that might be something that frustrates rather than actually highlight the strong goals or of the activities that citizen science projects are concretely carry on, especially for those with limited resources. So in a sense, we made a kind of meta project on public engagements, because it was part of the project itself, but we even developed public engagement tools for carrying out our project, both in terms of making some shifting roles, because we had the stakeholders to be involved, and while we were considering the pilots as researchers. And finally, because we shifted the role of the citizen science projects from being the researchers to become our stakeholders, we want to engage for our activity in co-designing the impact tools. Here are the reference list. I based my presentation so far, including one of the papers that we published during the project. And of course, if you want, I can share the presentation with you. And that's it from my side. Thank you for being patient with me.
Good afternoon. I replacing Vida. That was Paolo, assistant professor in sociology at the University of Padua. Thank you very much, Paolo. Indeed, very interesting presentation. Very useful to hear your experience. And now maybe someone have question. Feel free to write your question in the chat. What can be the best way to collaborate on the ongoing research with industry or research group?
Okay, so this...
In the chat, I see this question.
Oh, okay.
What can be the best way to collaborate on the ongoing research with industry?
Yeah. Thank you, Gupta. Well, there's no one best way, unfortunately. But there might be some good strategies to deal with them. Of course, it depends which kind of industry we are talking about, which kind of research group. I think you mean colleagues or some other research groups. Well, according to our experience, as I already mentioned, there is no... Okay, you are from a biomechanic research. Okay. So first, if you have the opportunity, and this is the first barrier that you might have, is to have the opportunity to talk with them, to select some representative from key firms, or if not available, key firms in your sector, in biomechanic. Well, you might ask to some less key firms, and talk with them about which are their expectation about your research, and this would work as a starting point to for a direct dialogue with some representative. From this, you can apply this experience and scaling up as a way to direct interest the people in that sector. This is the first suggestion. The first suggestion I would give to you. For more detailed suggestion and way to work in this direction, I would recommend, let's see if I can share here in the chat. Okay, it seems that it works. The website of Newsera. So you can see They are the blueprints for citizen science communication. So they might not be directly related to your topic because these are citizen science project, but still might give you some suggestions. Also, there are other publications that are reported in other deliverables. You might find interesting or at least useful. There's another question. You're welcome. The second question is, how would you tackle a scenario where you have to work with different scientific fields? I think that also Veronika might add her experience, I guess, since you are even more multidisciplinary than me, I guess.
Well, that is something that we run into sometimes. That is something we run into sometimes because we have two groups that are more natural science based and others that are more social science based. And I mean, with relations to what Paolo talked about, you have to talk to each other. You have to communicate. Something that I find useful is that don't be afraid to ask, like if there's, for example, the natural scientists use something that the social scientists can't quite figure out what they mean, you have to ask and say, what exactly does this mean in your context? But I think it might be really challenging if it's like the same terminology, but it means different stuffs. Depending on the field, that's probably even more important to figure out what you're talking about. Talk to each other, ask questions.
Maybe Veronika, you can say how we could maybe apologize if you answered this question, but maybe how we could maybe develop our communication skills every day, constantly, maybe exercise tips, how young researcher could develop their communication skills, but what to do every day if you want to develop.
Try and try again. Seriously, I mean, you can also find maybe there's some guidebook for your field. For example, in German-speaking countries and climate communication, we have this extremely thick and excessive handbook on science communication or climate communication and climate science communication, and Google it. Look if there's some article that relates especially to your field, because I think there's of course there's some guidelines that go for everyone or almost everyone, but different fields have different challenges. For example, in climate sciences, we have the question with, are we climate, so we are as we understand ourselves, we are policy relevant, but we are not policy descriptive. In other fields, maybe in medical fields, I don't know, it might be a more policy prescriptive. When you say, I don't know, if you smoke you get cancer, don't smoke, that's something that's pretty prescriptive, I think. But look into what is out there with regards to your field and try. Okay. Talk to your grandma and then talk to your weird neighbor that always, I don't know, because we just talked about smoking, always throws their cigarette bumps out into the garden, for example.
Thank you. Paula, you have one more question in chat.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Before tackling that question, that is very interesting, actually, I would like to add again my 2 cents. echoing what Veronika was already saying. She was rightly saying, trying, and in our experience as a research group in Padova, we tried to bring together people from different research fields, from neuroscience and social sciences. We just had a couple of weeks ago common seminar in the here in Padova. We also organized seminars related to artificial intelligence and the societal impact in order to bring together different expertise and try to keep the dialogue as fruitful as possible. It's one of the attempt you can do for sure. Not all the experience can be good. It depends, of course, on with whom you are trying to talk about. Also because, and this is another very important concept, communication affects and is the other way around, affected by trust between the different parts. So one of the tasks would be to build trust between different people involved in the dialogue. For sure, being normative and paternalistic doesn't have trust, because you cannot build trust if you assume that they should trust you because you are right. It doesn't work so, and we have tons of papers written about the failure of paternalistic approaches in science communication. So this is just to conclude my contribution to the answer of Veronika.
And can I just go back to
reverse?
Because,
okay.
Yes, because thank you for saying the thing with trust, because trust is also kind of an emotion, which I was talking about earlier. And if you are in a conversation with someone, with a researcher, with whomever, and you are engaged with them or with the topic, and you feel you can trust the person, you will also remember it better.
Sorry, there's a bit of delay, so I guess you concluded.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, someone in the room. Sorry.
Okay, no, don't worry. No, I had a bit of delay because of the connection. Sorry. And may I go? I totally quote your answer, by the way, Veronika. May I go to the
Medina's question? Yes.
to the Medina question? Okay, she's asking me, or us, about crowdsourcing. And she asked if might be considered as a co-design methodology. Well, crowdsourcing not necessarily is a co-design methodology. Of course, it depends the way you want to perform crowdsourcing. There are several examples of projects connected to crowdsourcing that are based actually on crowdsourcing. That are, most of them are citizen science projects, so people that are not researchers, but they contribute to research by collecting data. Is it co-design if not necessarily, if you are not contributing by defining the tools, by analyzing the data, or even holding the data rather than just providing them to the researcher, is not co-design. co-design there are many nuances in co-design for sure, but at a minimal shared point should be the opportunity to design together the way of participation. So not only to what extent I participate, but also to define together what I'm doing into research. So crowdsourcing per se might not be a co-design approach. For sure, crowdsourcing, if is providing some kind of feedback in the sense that about the rationale of why are you collecting data, or what are the aims of the crowdsourcing, and if the people involved in providing data through crowdsourcing are informed about the impact of this research and why it's important to have a disseminated point of observation, like, for instance, I don't know, you are familiar with iNaturalist platform or other platforms like that for biodiversity, then yes, might be not co-design for sure, but can give a good way of feedback to participants in order to be at least aware of what they are doing and for which purpose. So I have nothing against crowdsourcing. I'm critical, but still can be a useful way to have research done in a different way.
Okay, thank you. Just to say, because I'm working in a scientific institute, and our topic is like to research the crowdsourcing in a different aspects. So it was very interesting to hear your point of view about the public engagement. So what I would take is that it depends from the scope, it depends from the design, how it's structured, how it's made and planned, the crowdsourcing, and it depends if could be a co-design methodology or it could be a part of the scientific project, right?
Yeah, but also co-designed is not necessarily excluding the scientific part of the well, co-design does not mean that it's outside of the scientific research. It can be integrated. I published recently some papers about it. So if you are interested, I can forward not only my papers, because some of them are review papers, some others are research papers, but is plenty of social scientists dealing with the issues of how to concretely provide good participation, because we shifted from the absence of participation, and that was an issue, to how participation is actually performed.
Yes, please. I will be very happy if you forward it. Thank you.
I can put them in the chat.
Maybe we have a question. I don't see question. Thank you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Veronika, for your time, for your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for attention. I want to remember that the next training session we have on Monday. Who registered it? We have on Monday. Now, don't forget fill feedback form. And thank you very much. Have a good day. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye.